In this video, I'm going to go over combining photos that you've bracketed. So just to remind you, bracketed photos, you set it up on the tripod and you take the same exact photo, but you vary your settings, usually your shutter speed, so that you have different exposures of the same exact scene. So I'm going to combine these two photos that I'm clicking between. You'll see some things change about the photo, so the clouds shift, but that's okay because I'm going to take the sky from one and the ground from the other, so I don't need the clouds to match up. What I do need to match up is these lines in the photo, like the line from the sand and the line of the buildings and all those kind of lines. Okay, so I'm going to export these two photos so I can layer them, and I'm going to do that without cropping. You can crop. The reason I'm not cropping, this line is a little bit tilted, and if I crop not exactly between the two photos, I'll have problems matching them up. So I'm going to actually crop in Photoshop, which I'll do in a separate video. Okay, so I want to create a folder so I can stay organized under my night, and I can call this night Lightroom edits, or whatever has meaning to you. Just make sure night is in the name. Okay, and then I'm going to rename the files. Image format, those are all the same settings we always use. Now if I don't crop them, I want to uncheck the resize to fit box. So you see this is shaded out, nothing's in there. I do want to make sure the resolution is 300 pixels per inch. Okay, and then at the bottom, I'm going to, after export, open in Adobe Photoshop Creative Cloud 2017. Click export and the files are going to open into Photoshop. So it'll just take a minute. You can see that it's exporting up here. Okay, so now we have Photoshop. So Photoshop, we've gone over stuff before, but just remember you have this where you can reset your workspace. So I can go back to Essentials, or I can choose Photography, or if I customize my own workspace, I can do that. Okay, I can open and close windows here, etc. So first thing at the top, this is a little different because previously we probably just opened one image at a time. We now have the two images in these tabs at the top. If we're going to combine images, it is much easier to drag these both, or if you have three photos, all three out of the frame here. And the reason is if you drag one out, I'll show you, it's super annoying. And then I click on this, that photo disappears because it goes behind the program. So to prevent that from happening, drag them both out. Okay, that way you don't have to find and retrieve the photos every time you're trying to search for it. Okay, and then I'm gonna put them side by side. So I'm gonna zoom out so that I can see both of them. So Command Z and then Command Z. Okay, so next thing, I have two options for getting one photo on top of the other, and that's the first step in combining. I can copy and paste, or I can drag with the Move tool. I'll go over both right here. Sometimes one is better than the other for you. It just depends. First thing though, I want to decide which photo I want to put on top of the other. So in my situation, I like the buildings here, and I like the sky here. They're a little bit washed out here, but there's no detail in the bottom. So I'm going to put this and maybe the water over here. So I'm going to put this one on top of this one. If you make that decision, it ends up being the harder way later, you can always start over. It's up to you. Okay, so the first way, if I'm going to copy and paste, I'm going to click on this photo and I'm going to select the whole thing. So the long way is select all. The short way is Command A on a Mac. Okay, then I'm going to copy, and the long way is Edit, Copy, or the keyboard shortcut is Command C. Then I'm going to click on this photo, and the long way to paste is Edit, Paste. The keyboard shortcut is Command V. The nice thing about doing it that way is it's going to line up exactly on top, whereas the other way you'll have to move it around. If your photos don't line up exactly, I would do it the way I'm about to show you instead. Okay, so just back up. If I instead want to move one photo on top of the other, I want to choose the Move tool, which is V like Victor. It's this tool at the top here, Move tool. Okay, then I'm going to click on the photo I want on top, and I have to actually click on the photo part of it, not the frame. Okay, so see how you can see the Move tool here. And then I click down with my mouse and I drag it over to the other photo. You'll see it won't line up, so you have to line it up. And sometimes that's better because if your photos are a tiny bit off, you'll want to line it up yourself. Next up, I'm going to show you how to check that. So this one I don't need. I'm going to minimize it. And then I'm going to zoom back in on this one. I'm also going to drag the frame out so I can talk about something in a second. So you can always do that with the corner of the photo. You just drag it out like this. Okay, so if I'm not sure if they line up, I can turn on and off, and you can see they don't line up. So I turn on and off this layer, and then I can move it around with the Move tool. And if they're still not lining up, what I would suggest you do is take down for the layer, take down the opacity here, so you can see one photo behind the other. So let me put it offset. So you can see those don't line up. Okay, I'm seeing both photos at the same time because this top one is 54% solid and partially see-through. So then I can move it around. Okay, if I need to, I can also go to Edit, Transform, and I can rotate the photo if it's like a little bit off. And this is where you need like to see the outside of the frame, this black space. See how it turns into a turn arrow when I hover in that area? Then you can turn it if you needed to. At the top, you can choose whether to apply it or not. I don't want to apply that, so. Okay, so once everything's lined up, you don't have to turn it back to 100%. In my case, I am. I may turn it back down later, but if you want to work on it with it lower, that's okay too. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to layer mask this. Okay, we've talked about that in portraits a lot, so now we're going to do it with two duplicate layers that are two different photos actually, right? Okay, so I have two options. I can add a white layer mask, and to do that, I'm going to click the Add Layer Mask button down here. You can see this is the layer mask, the white thumbnail. It doesn't hide anything. If I do it that way, when I choose the brush tool, which is B for brush, okay, so B for brush looks like this. I would still set my brush options. So let's see if I want to use this like an eraser. I'm going to use a really big brush. Set this to normal, opacity and flow 100. If it is a white mask, I want my brush color here to be black in front. Okay, and then once I have that all set up, with a white mask, I use the black brush like an eraser. So what this is doing is it's erasing the top photo so that I can see the bottom photo underneath it. Okay, and if this was a real project, I would get in with a smaller brush and I would get really precise on this line down here and maybe go a little bit harder with the brush. Okay, and I can turn it on and off to see. Okay, with either of these options, you can hold down your Option key, click the layer mask, and see if you missed little spots, which I did. Okay, and then Option key, click the layer mask again. Okay, if you want to do it the opposite way, so I'm going to delete this layer mask. It's going to ask me if I want to show it. I'm just going to say delete. Okay, if I want to hide everything, which may be easier for you, you're going to add a black layer mask instead. So white layer mask won't hide anything. Use the black brush like an eraser. The black layer mask will hide everything. So I'll hold down my Option key and I still click the same button, Add Layer Mask. Okay, you can see the mask is black that it added. And this time, still use the brush, set my settings, but I want a white brush because it's opposite, right? Okay, so the white brush will reveal. Okay, so white mask doesn't hide anything. Use the black brush like an eraser. The black mask hides everything. and you use the white brush to reveal. Okay, again, I can hold down my Option key, click on it to see if I missed any spots. And again, my real one, I would go in with a smaller brush and zoom in and make sure I get that line really straight. Okay. All right, so those are the basics of that. And remember, if you make a mistake, you can always switch to the opposite color. So if my original mask was black, I want to use black. And I can use that to clean up any mistakes I make. Always turn on and off to make sure that it looks good. If you think it's too strong, you have the options in the layer window to reduce the opacity and or the flow to kind of blend the two layers together. Okay, last thing on this, just always make sure that you pay attention to what you're clicked on. So if I'm clicked on this and I start using my brush, I'm actually painting on the photo, okay? Definitely don't want to do that. So you have to pay attention whether you're on, which layer you're on, but also whether you're on the photo part or on the layer mask part. Last thing you would save, the same way that we saved the portrait project. So you want to do a save as and make sure when you save it the first time, you save it as a format Photoshop with the layers checked. And that is it.